Guys, we are here. Say hello to Callie. Callie, say hello.
Hello, everybody. How we doing?
Good to see some familiar legends. Rockstar, Evie. Bugles up for some real ones. Good to see y'all. We are out here. We're doing it. Callie was extremely patient while I slogged through some OBS.
OBS is always such an experience and never a good one. I don't know anyone who's like, I don't know if it's just one of those things where it's like because you expect it to work, it like you don't say anything good about it when it does, but all I ever hear is bad things.
I mean, I spent all last night doing this, and it's a new computer, so I'm like,
Yeah.
it's all good. I'm 700 years old apparently is what's going on, but we made it. Callie, how you feeling today?
I feel wonderful. I'm excited to be here and talk. Like this is like my little break in between like doing morning prep and then running my game this evening. So yeah. I'm excited.
Yeah. I love hearing that. She basically was telling me that she was leaving prep, like, kind of like prepping before this.
Yeah.
You have a game in like 2.5 hours or 3
Yeah,
hours.
2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah.
like, and then has some more after that. So that's, I mean, honestly, I know we don't know each other super well. That feels to me like you kind of in a nutshell, Callie. But could you sort of like, for those of us, the first time, kind of tell us who you are, what's going on?
It's very nice to meet everybody. My name is Callie. I am a writer and project manager for Cloaks and Capes, a group that creates homebrew items, maps, resources, anything you could need for your D&D or tabletop experience. It is just us, myself, another writer, Robbie, and 2 artists who do this. We don't use AI for anything because we don't,
humans.
because we're people and we like to have be a soul. So that's what we do. And in addition to that, I'm also a professional dungeon master, the rated PG-13 kind. Not the other kind. Well, sure, maybe the other kind, but that costs more.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, it depends.
Yeah, it's a different experience. And yeah, so I run 4 games a week through Start Playing Games, and in my homebrew setting that I stream on Wednesdays.
Amazing. And we can find you at Escalia on Twitch as well.
Yes, twitch.tv/Escalia.
Incredible.
And yep, I play in a game on Monday nights that we stream, and so that'll be tonight at 8:30 Eastern time, and we run our game at 8:30 on Wednesdays, a game called Mother's Jail.
Mother's Jail. Wow.
Yes. So yeah,
ripped from my journals. That's what a
So
setting.
in my homebrew setting, one of the continents, the Dragonborn continent, is called Mother's Jail, MOTHERSGAOL. And the campaign title is Mother's Jail, but it's Mother's 'S space jail, so it's 2 words. This
is just the tip of the iceberg, folks. Well,
get ready, buckle up.
Infuse, I love you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the shout out. Callie, I got a little feedback. I think maybe the virtual cam might be lagging a little bit whenever I'm capturing it.
Okay.
Do we want to maybe try just to see what it feels like, just to switch back?
Yeah.
And sorry, that's definitely a latency thing on my end. I appreciate that.
No worries. Let me switch over to this one.
Yes, let's go. I think that's clearer in OBS.
Okay.
Amazing. Guys, how do we feel about that? Thank you for the feedback. Okay, Heart Slot. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the way to go, virtual cam. We love you.
Yeah, you looked great on my end, so I'm not really sure what was going on. But
okay, there we go.
But now we are double back. So Callie, like, first off, it cracks me up anytime someone is on stream with me and then they're streaming later. Like that to me feels like the biggest gift, because like, like I get done streaming and typically like I come back and my life is mildly aflame. Like the dog, the baby,
everything,
my soon-to-be ex-wife. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I need to step in and do something here. So like doubly so when you're streaming later. But I always like to ask, like, because I kind of gave you the rundown on, what Between Two DMs is and kind of like my style of prep and stuff. But, talking about Callie coming to the tabletop, like, was it D&D first? Were you a player before a DM?
My first experience with tabletop was I'm going to date myself a little bit here. When Diablo 2 came out, there in the collector's edition, they had a D&D 3.5 module that came with the collector's edition of D2. And my cousin owned it, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to play this D&D like thing that they have with it?" So I tried it, and then I didn't play D&D again for like 4 or 5 years or something like that. And 4th edition was out, and so I decided I wanted to try to run D&D. So I bought 4th edition and tried to learn and run my first game on 4E. Which, if you ever have that opportunity, go ahead and take a pass on that, because it's not any fun to try to learn that one first. It was so complicated.
That is hysterical. And Omega, I love that chat. Diablo 2 was like an enormous, I mean, incredible game. Changed a lot about how I like viewed class and fantasy and stuff.
Yes.
But I've never played 4. I just hear the nightmares about it. I feel like it's considered the worst system.
Yeah, what it wanted to do, it actually does well. And I think it's a mixture of, there were a lot of grognards who did not like what it did. And to be fair, I also had a lot of complaints about what it did, because 4E was trying to be a much more, not streamlined necessarily, but the rules are laid out and here's how everything works, and you can play it like you would play a video game. And there were some people who liked that, and then there were some people who were like, I don't like that everyone has abilities. What if I just want to play a fighter and swing my sword real good?
Fair question.
Yeah. And so with 5e, they kind of walked that back and went away. But if you're looking for a crunchy, like, combat strong system, 4e is your system. Like, that's the one you're looking for. But of course, we're moving into a more heavy role play era.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's so well put, though, because I sense that even just comparing 3rd or 3.5 to 5th.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, I feel like my community knows this, but let me just, again, I don't know how much this is outing myself. I never played Baldur's Gate 1. Always saw it. I was always like, my mom was like pulling me by it, like, don't linger too much. I'm like, oh, and
but it looks cool.
Yeah, I'm like, why is that skull surrounded in droplets of blood? Come to find out, it's like basically the sigil of Bala. I'm like, oh, fuck. Yeah. But man, I've been playing Baldur's Gate 1, have been obsessed.
Yes.
And loving it, but it has really like dropped me into more or less like kind of, 2nd, 3rd edition world with like Thaco and like wanting an armor class that's super low, like a very low, even a negative number,
I think it's funny when you just say Thaco, the immediate like 2 responses you get. You either get people who go, like, it's like Jim Carrey and Liar Liar where there's horrified, or you get the people who just get that kind of wistful, far off look of like, 100%. Oh yeah, I loved it. I loved needing an abacus to calculate whether it hit. Those are the two reactions.
That really is that. It's like I roll my dice and give me 4 minutes to do the math on this.
Let me get my slide rule out.
Oh, that's so real. But like that, those systems, like everything we're talking about, even moving into like Cypher or Call of Cthulhu or Space Blues or something, like there is a different. There's sort of a gain and a loss from each of these. And so I never really get to ask people this because I don't know too many 4th edition like peeps. But do you still borrow stuff from that? Like, did you find that because it was your first exposure, it is a reference point for you?
It really is one of those things where what 4E did well is my least favorite element of D&D. Combat and dungeon crawling. Those are the things that I actually don't care for the most. I love characters and story and how a character changes from the beginning to the end, which a lot of people would then say, well, why are you using D&D at all? And I tell people, for the same reason that I play my games in English instead of Spanish. It's the language we all know.
Yeah, there you go.
Like,
there you go.
So absolutely. But I do have things that I like to borrow out of 4E, particularly its source books had some of the coolest villains and creations in it that really never got to shine because 4E wasn't popular. I'm running a game right now called, it's Descent into Avernus, but I'm running it as opposed to being the prequel to Baldur's Gate 3. I'm running it as a sequel to Baldur's Gate 3, so that characters of Baldur's Gate 3 have been appearing in it. They are around and things are happening. Um, and
That's cool.
the villain of it is actually a recreation of the villain that I used in my very first game that I ever ran. And she's from the 4E Demonomicon. Her name is Ublave. And I love her. I loved her the moment I saw her, and that really should have told me more about myself than I was willing to explore at that time. I loved her so much.
Yo, shout out to 4th edition.
Yeah, shout out to 4E is
That's
what I'm
hilarious.
trying to get at.
But wait, Callie, that's hysterical. Wait, can you give us a rundown of Ugalia? I'm tempted to Google them right now.
Of who?
Is it Ugalia? Am I mispronouncing
Ublave.
it? Ublave. I'm so sorry.
Ublave.
Can you give us a rundown?
Ublave is the Archangel of the Everlasting Void. She is a, what a title.
Okay.
She is a demoness in the abyss. She kind of has this chitinous armor that she wears. She's got horns and a scorpion's tail. I actually based my villain in my first homebrew game that I ran. Named Scala. I based her design off of what Ublave looked like, though I made Scala more of like a tiefling than this kind of insectoid creature that Ublave is. And she has emerged as the archdemoness and the overarching villain of my campaign. She is the other half of Asmodeus, where Asmodeus is order, she is chaos. And the two of them once made up Lucifer, who fell from heaven.
Are you guys hearing this? Are you guys getting this? I mean, like, Heartslot, thank you for spelling it. Heartslot knew how badly I needed that, like, phonetically laid out for me.
Yes.
Probably presuming rightly that I was Googling it and not finding it. Thank you.
And not find it is an interesting spelling, but when you get the picture of her and she's standing on the rock with her scorpion tail twisted around, you're like, oh yeah,
God
you're
damn
really
it,
cool.
yeah, this is a bad B.
Yeah, that's why I fell in love with her the moment I saw her, and I made her my first villain. So I've got like this level 30 CR 30 demon as my first villain for this level 4 party, and I'm just like, I didn't know what I was doing at the time.
It's Arblave, comrade. That is fucking great. Chat, you were on point. Everyone is really on point except for me and OBS. If I was
Always
a little,
OBS.
if I was more caught up on my scenes, I would jump to the one that I built yesterday.
Yes.
In case we needed to move to a browser, but I didn't add the captures from Zoom. Doesn't matter. That's brilliant.
Because it's going to be great.
Like, I do that same thing with some certain 3rd edition stuff, mainly with villains and NPCs, because, like, and I don't know if it's just the fact that now I'm running more homebrew, but even in some of the Call of Cthulhu modules and stuff, because I'm still with Cthulhu, like, borrowing a lot more than I'm homebrewing, but man, like the depth of the old, I'm really just thinking 3rd edition. I haven't read many 4th edition stuff, but the depth of the breakdown of the character, like why they're there, who they are, like their motivations, wants and needs. I mean, they basically like drop a living, breathing plot point into your campaign.
I love villains in general. I mean, try not to play one in real life, so enjoy playing one in your game while you can. I love villains, and I think there's a pitfall that so many people fall into with their villains, where their villain has been here from the word go, when a truly compelling villain is pushed to their eventual insanity by the actions of the party. The best villains start in the reasonable. They start with someone where it's like, hey, this isn't right, but it's not insane, it's not unreasonable, and it's only as the party keeps thwarting their plans and pushing them further down the track to try to make their plan work that it eventually becomes insane.
So accurately put, right? Like that's how I've always felt with Batman's villains, where I'm like, all right, dude, first off, you're like cuffing these guys and throwing them in an asylum.
Yes.
Like, what do you think the back end of that is going to look like? You know what I mean?
The Dark Knight, I think, actually spoke to that really well. Love or hate the Nolan movies, The Dark Knight, might have actually been, it was the end of the first one, Batman Begins, where Gordon talks about what about escalation? Now we've got we get bulletproof armor, they get armor-piercing rounds. Now we've got a superhero. What is the villain escalation of that? And we see the Joker appear out of that. And it's how the hero makes the villain, and that is truly the dynamic of these stories, is that as much as the villains make the heroes make the villains.
That's it. That's it, guys. Thanks for coming to the interview. I appreciate it. We got everything we needed. We made it to Nolan.
We got the soundbite. Okay, there we go. We're good.
No, I'm literally like, it's killing me how this is the last time I'm gonna bring it up. I love this computer. I just don't know how to drive it yet, and I wish I could more easily clip that because it's like that's exactly.
I'm sure one of my my followers might be willing to grab a clip for you.
Grab a clip for it. I took the timestamp down, so either way, I'll go back and find it. But you're absolutely right, Callie. Like that that presentation is real, and I think that like I view DMing like through a very kind of performative lens of like being an actor, you know what I mean? And a lot of my table are actors as well. So there's a lot of that
That's really
sense
cool.
of like, let's fucking get it. But it also makes me want to, in a way that often feels very easy, follow that trickle down of if this, then what? If what, then what else? You know? And I think the way that you frame that is really compelling, but it's just so realistic. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it's we see it too much in the world today. We see the greatest evils are always shrouded in the reasonable, and that is one of the most difficult things that we face, whether it be in your modern political system or the world at large. The fundamental, I think John Oliver actually said this best. The fundamental truth of the American public is if you want to do something evil, hide it in something boring.
Yeah.
That is
my man.
A lot of those things. In my homebrew campaign, we ran 51 sessions. It wrapped up. It's called Whispers in Silence, and the story was about the return of effectively that world's Satan equivalent, their great villain who'd been vanquished a long time ago and was now back. But what we come to learn in that campaign is that the demons of my world are partially created by what people believe of them.
Oh, fuck.
So when she was vanquished years ago, she was the dread demon of hatred. But when she comes back, she's now the dread demon of hopelessness and nihilism. And she has seen that 700 years after her defeat, there are still people out there who are in pain. The world still hasn't really gotten any better, even for her absence. And so she takes it on herself that she is going to end the world and give people that peace that they desire. And she looks at it as a gift that she gives to her people.
I love this. Like that, I mean, I think it's common knowledge that villains feel justified in their actions, right? Some version of that.
Every villain is the hero in their own story.
Totally. But what you're speaking to is an even like a narrower example of that, which is that even outside the villain, especially early in the steps, right, there can be that air of reasonability. There can be that 1934 like Nazi party where they're like, but that.
Well, he might fix the economy.
Totally, and like those aspects of where maybe the full extent of the ruthlessness or the whatever, the lack of morality or compass, whatever, hasn't fully
right. The syphilis hasn't set in yet.
Yeah, exactly. Like that vibe. That's Shakespeare. You know what I mean? Well, is that gray area? Like
yes, exactly. And that's kind of as the story evolves with this character. You know, they defeat her once, they defeat her twice. And in the end of it, she has
keep
now
kind of
gone.
Changing, you know, like,
she does. She changes in each act, and so in the first act, they meet her and they see that she actually has been resurrected, and she is back. And each of them is chosen of a goddess of my world, and those goddesses intervene to protect the party and save them. So she spends the entire second act hunting down these goddesses and capturing and slaying them to ensure they can't intervene again. And in the end of the second act, when they face her and defeat her once more, she gives up on being a dread demon. She decides, I can't win like this. Apparently this isn't strong enough. And she absorbs those goddesses into herself, and she became the goddess of the world. And that the villain of the third act, they had to change their alignment to evil because they are now evil in terms of that world. Dude, and they had to stand and fight God. And that was the final act of the story. But at the end, when they finally do defeat her once and for all, and at this point, she has torn them through time and space, trying to beat them any way she can, and ultimately mortal will overcomes that of the divine in my worlds always. That is one of my primary themes of every game I run, is that mortals can change the world. Gods and goddesses and demons and devils can't. That's
I love that.
That's the primary function of my world.
In that, and just to dive into that a little bit, like would a fair analogy be that like the gods are almost like hurricane force winds? Like they're powerful, they're there, but it's
they're powerful and they're there, but if they could solve the problem, they would have, and they can't. And apparently the problem is there for the players to deal with, so they weren't able to. I got it from there's a setting called Legend of the Five Rings that was written by John Wick, and it is not that John Wick, but
it got me. I was like, John Wick?
Yeah, no, like the guy with the dog. He wrote that. That's crazy.
He wrote it for his dog. It was in memoriam.
Yeah, for his dog. They played a lot of tabletop. So there is this great tale that it tells, and it's a setting called Rokugan, which is basically fantasy Japan. It's samurais in Japan, and it's all very realistic and definitely all happened. But one of the
it's all good. I finished Shogun. I'm ready.
Exactly. You've got the idea. But one of the primary rules, just like in say like Cyberpunk, the primary rules, there are no happy endings in Night City.
I didn't know. I did not know that was a rule of Cyberpunk. Jesus.
Mike Pondsmith, when he wrote Cyberpunk, said there are no happy endings in Night City, and when CD Projekt Red made the game, they stuck to that rule. Indeed, the only happy ending you get is if you leave the city. So,
what is this, Christian conservatism? Like, that is hilarious.
Yeah, kind of. It's dystopian. But in Rokugan, one of the primary rules of the setting is that fortune favors the mortal man, which is to say that it is mortals who can make the difference. So in my Curse of Strahd games, my players, I had, of the 5 players in this group, 4 of them were either chosen of gods, or they had a pact with the devil for their warlock abilities, or they were chosen in some way. And then one of them was just a dude who happened to be there at the wrong time in the wrong place. And in both campaigns, only that one person was able to actually kill Strahd and keep him dead, because they are the mortal. They are the mortal man who can make the difference.
Man, I told you I'm in a Curse of Strahd campaign right now, so I'm like,
yes,
I'm like just getting to the Amber Temple. So sort of everyone, you
are getting towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, am I? Okay.
Amber Temple is basically like,
bro.
So you guys are like what, level 11-ish then?
No, we're level 7.
You guys went to the Amber Temple very early. Then.
Oh God, that worries me so
good luck.
much. Callie, God damn it! This is the first character I've ever lost. The first PC that's ever, died or sort of been
okay.
And I hated it, but it's now put me into the world very, very deeply. Thank you, Amon, dude, get in here. I don't even know what took me down that, but it's you start to see like how people that have lived in Barovia, like in Kresk, the idea of like the soulless and the not, like these people that have been living in this like ecosystem of fill in the blank, but in this case like darkness, dread.
Darkness, yeah, in Gothic horror.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that's what makes it such a good campaign. It seems like you've really captured that as well.
My Curse of Strahd game, is the big reveal of it is that it takes place 800 years after a Curse of Strahd game has ended. And in my game, the story is very, very different. It follows the book pretty closely through the first act, and then just takes a hard divergence into a whole new tale. And indeed, Robert talks about how the cycle repeats and what that looks like.
That is absolutely hilarious. And can you you know what? These are all great questions.
Do we want to give a quick spoiler alert before I say anything?
Yeah,
more?
Exactly. Let's actually pump the brakes, because I also don't want to be spoiled.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, because this calls into, this sort of brings into focus, I feel like, one of the biggest questions and one of often the biggest differences between DMs, GMs, etc. But everything you're talking about, Callie, is like, it's super specific, and it's I love hearing you talk about act structure as well. Like that's a big way that I like to define storytelling, right? But I'm curious, because a lot of what you do is homebrew. Is it something where you, could you maybe describe your pre-campaign prep process, just sort of what that looks like? I know it could be a million different things.
No, it can, but I know what you're getting at. So there are 2 kinds of tables in my experience. There are tables where there is a beginning, middle, and end to the story that we all know about, and then there are tables where we're just going to sit down and play until we don't feel like playing anymore. And that game may or may not have a conclusive ending in any real way, but it's just an ongoing campaign. I I live, breathe, and function by the 3-act structure and the idea of there being a beginning, middle, and end. I struggle immensely when I can't have an idea of where this tale is going and where we're trying to get to. If it's just we're in the world and we're floundering around and doing whatever, if that's part of the story, fine. But if it's not, if that's just what the game is, I really struggle to get invested with that.
Yes.
So for me, like with Curse of Strahd and with Descent into Avernus and Call of the Netherdeep, which I'm running on Mondays, those games all have 3 acts. And while, of course, they're going to change a lot based on what the players do and things, like my Whispers and Silence game changed so much from what I originally pitched to what it ended up being. It was supposed to be a much smaller scope story, but all that happened is the NPC that they were supposed to hate, they really like.
wait,
so
tell
I'm
us about the NPC.
Okay, so his name is Martine Sunvale.
I like him already. Sunvale? Is he a contractor? I love this guy.
Yeah, he's great. He is, in my world, he is a member of Laki's Inquisition. Laki is the, I guess, Jesus equivalent of my world. She was the hero who stood up and defeated Scala years ago. And the Inquisition is named after her. They are dedicated to hunting demons, which they now know are all gods in my world and all demons start as mortals. No one starts off as a god or demon. You spark and become one in my world. And so they know that the best way to face a demon is to keep people's knowledge of it very limited, because demons are empowered by the element that they are part of. So the best way to do so is to keep people's knowledge very limited, and that's what his job is as an inquisitor. And he was supposed to be this character who he was going to employ the party, but he was always going to be making them do things that were kind of questionable, but maybe they're good because they're preventing demons from coming back, but maybe they're also causing more problems than they're actually solving. Yeah,
it's like, are we going over to your ex-girlfriend's boyfriend's house? Like, what? Wait a minute.
Is this a good plan?
Part of the campaign?
Right. So that was what it was supposed to be, but they ended up really liking him and kind of identifying with his character and his struggles and what he went through. And so I decided at the end of to basically do the end of what I originally planned for the campaign at the end of the first act, which is where he himself ignited and became the Dread Demon of Lies. And he became, because that is what he did to people, is lie for their own benefit, and he became the Demon of Lies.
And how did the party kind of react to that? Were they like, oh my God, he's even cooler?
I have the moment where he started to transform clipped, and I still love going back and watching, because one of the players just goes, oh no, as they realized what was happening. It was great.
Vog, get in here. Vog goes, I love you. Dude, that is, Callie, that is brilliant. In like, well, yeah, I want to tuck into some more of your favorite of those kind of moments, because I'm sure they abound. Have you, like, were you a player before you were a DM?
Yes. So after my experience with trying to run a game in 4E, which went like 4 or 5 sessions, something like that, I got out for a little bit, and then in college really started to get back into it as I discovered that I liked performing and wanted to try and make performing my career. So I got into podcasting at that point. I dropped out of, I was in school for game design at that point, but I dropped out and went to Specs Howard for digital media production.
Respect. It is so hard to do that, by the way, to like really genuinely follow your passion whenever your mind is set.
Let me tell you, my parents were thrilled when I said that after 7 years of college, I was dropping out and going to a different school. And my parents were thrilled about that. At that point, I was working on a podcast with my friends that was starting to grow and get pretty big. We were looking at parlaying that into becoming a radio show, and around that time I met my future wife, and but I met her through my brother-in-law. And he and I became very close friends very quickly. We clicked instantly and became friends, and he was a big tabletop player, and so he invited me to play in his Song of Ice and Fire campaign that he was running.
Shut up.
Yeah, so Song of Ice and Fire is an awesome system if you ever get to play in it. The only problem I have with it is that the first session is the most fun, because that's the one where you get to build your house and make your house words and figure out what your castle looks like. It's all the world building. That's so much fun to do. That's the first session. That's the best session.
That for me is like beginning a Risk game. And then it like really gets to the nitty gritty. I'm like, God damn it. All right, here we go.
Yes, exactly. But that's what got me back into playing and like designing a character, because he was a theater kid growing up, and so was my wife. They were both theater kids. So they were all about the role play aspect of it and the character growth. And that's what really got me invested and wanting to play more.
I love how like performance has like kind of like oftentimes performance, like people get bitten by that, like people get bitten by vampires. Like it's dramatic, it's full frontal, like you're like, oh God, I'm being bitten. And this sounds like it was way more of like a sleeper cell, like you contracted something you didn't know.
I would never have thought about it. I would never have wanted to be a performer growing up. I was in school, like I say, for video game design, and anything I could do away from people's eyes, basically, is what I wanted to do. But I was a huge Final Fantasy XI geek. I loved Final Fantasy XI, and there was a podcast called Limit Break Radio, which was very popular at the time, and I was a fan of it, and I listened to it. And one day I'm talking with some other fans of the show, and they're like, "Oh, where are you from?" And I told them, "Oh, I'm from Metro Detroit area." And they're like, "Oh, you're up there with the Limit Break Radio cast." And I'm like,
"Am I?
What? I am?" So I reach out to the lead host. Come to find out, he grew up one town over from me, and I actually knew him. I'd met him before. I couldn't believe it. Like he worked in a store that I used to go into all the time.
You checked it out and you recognized it. That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So he invited me up to do a guest spot on the show, and by the time that was over with, on the way home, I was already planning my own show and figuring out who I wanted to have around. Like, yeah, I was.
Isn't that's really beautiful? Like that's really beautiful. Whenever life presents you with that, where you're like, oh, I'm kind of interested. Oh shit, I know that person. Like, this is less daunting. I'm actually like kind of drawn into this now.
Small world.
Yeah.
That's and then amazing. From there, podcasting, radio. I was the editor-in-chief of Esports Illustrated, and I launched that.
You know what? I read that when I was Googling around. That's so badass.
Yeah, that was an experience.
I feel like Sports Illustrated is like I've like there was such a titan, and then I feel like they've had a rough 3 or 4 years of like them trying to restructure, and
it's been, I'll put it this way. I'm glad I don't work there today.
Sure.
I think that's how I would put that.
You're like, let me put it to you like this.
Yeah. It ended up being a good time to get out.
Yes. That feeling is so beautiful, right? Whether it's a relationship, a job, a city, doesn't matter. Yeah. Like you're kind of like, okay.
And from there I've just been doing mainly just writing. I do commission writing pieces sometimes, and cool. Working on Cloaks and Capes, and now running my own games 5 days a week.
In Capes is badass, and Callie has an extremely full. I mean, still some availability, but her start playing is dynamite. I'm gonna drop that at the end. But if you just search,
what do I have? Let's see. I've got one space available, I think, in one of my Eberron games. No.
And a lot of these are reoccurring campaigns, which is badass.
Yeah, absolutely. My 2 groups that did Curse of Strahd, now that we finished that, we're going into Eberron, and then we've got Call of the Netherdeep and Descent into Avernus, and after Avernus is finished, we're going to do a game in my homebrew setting.
That's badass. I kind of want to tuck into this because, clearly this is a strength of yours and something that you really, really have within your crosshairs. It's something that I think is one of the most rewarding aspects. Like I think Robert, I'm not sure who in chat kind of echoed this, but those moments where you really are able to string something out and see the setup, the hook land, and then the payoff, like it's sort of pulled out. I think those are incredibly beautiful. Like those are hard to create and extremely satisfying. But and I'd love to know, I mean, anything you have to say about that, especially some of your favorites. But this is really my question here because it's something that has come up a lot and something, honestly, that I'm kind of dealing with a little bit in my longest running homebrew game.
Sure.
Which is I'm trying to think about how to frame this. Everyone that was here last week I usually on Mondays do D&D prep, and I feel like last Monday I was like, Like,
Just
I was just like, you know, like
Feeling
young
it.
Hamlet. I was just like, I can't. Everything sucks.
everything is terrible.
You know what I mean? I'm just like flopping.
Oh yeah.
But it was because I follow act structure big time. Like we this game in particular began as Dragon of Icespire Peak, which for me is a phenomenal starter campaign. It's
Wonderful game.
I think it's awesome because it's so amenable. It can also be so customized with your party's backstories, but it spun out into character backstory. You know, we spent like a year on Dragon, and then we went 2+ years into backstory. Some beautiful points, some setups, some follow-throughs, and basically we'd had like a couple peaks and valleys, and it kept ramping, and it was working towards this one scenario that felt, I just had all the aspects of it where I was like, left or right, up or down, like these versions will still, not that all roads led to the same reaction,
Right.
but there was a choice tree that ended in a multiple of results that for me felt like strong conclusions to the campaign.
Right.
Obviously, that entire thing got fucked, and I mean, I'll you know, and like this happens. Every DM knows this, but I'm telling you, like I war gamed this. Like I was like, boom, and of course there was something I didn't think of.
Always.
And like anytime you have a party that can teleport, it's like, well, you're fucked, dude. Like who knows?
What are you gonna do?
Who knows what they're gonna do?
Listen, there is a reason that Baldur's Gate 3 ended at level 12. They knew. They knew at what level it becomes unmanageable.
Listen, I did not know Baldur's Gate 1 ends at 10, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm realizing that. I'm like, oh, shit, okay. So my point is this, is like, it has really taken me, it's been the most challenging stretch of DMing I've ever experienced, truly, the past 2 months. Because I was disappointed. I found myself a little bit in what I call, like, the malaise area, where it's sort of like, okay, yeah, we're doing stuff, it's grounded in the world, it's trickled down from plot, but like I don't give a fuck about this. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like if you guys are having
As
fun,
the DM, I don't care.
exactly, and like that for me sets off alarm bells because
Yeah,
I'm
it's
like
not a good sign when
like-
you yourself are bored.
100%, and I can tell I'm like, okay, I can still make this happen, I can further it, but like this is not where I thought we'd be. And I'm curious, one, if you've ever experienced that, and two, what you view as being like the pragmatic workarounds. And last thing, I know I'm talking a mile a minute.
No, you're fine.
But because like some of those workarounds truly sometimes I think are full stops where you're like, okay, hey, we're going to skip a week, guys, because honestly, like that was rad. You guys are beautiful. I did not anticipate you guys
I was not ready for that.
doing that, you know, like,
Yeah.
and whatever. And I think that's perfectly fine. It's obviously not like the ego in me, the performer in me doesn't enjoy that. But I'm curious, like, what has been your experience? Have you dealt with that? How do you deal with that? Like, what's it look like in your world?
I think there's a few things about that. The first that springs to mind is like any good improv, yes and.
Yeah.
So
yep.
obviously you can do your thing, and I'll figure out how that's going to play into it and how it's going to work. But for sure, there do come times where you had an idea of where the story was going, and now as a result of the little decisions, I mean, not even the big decision, it's just the little decisions, and more importantly than that, the tone of the decisions that they make. Because when they start going through it, and you can tell that they're trying to get the story to a place that is different than where you want it to end up, you just have a difference of expectations between what you want and what the party wants. And that can be a really frustrating thing if you are married to your story.
Well put.
And I always try to remember a couple points, which is to say that D&D and tabletop in general is collaborative storytelling.
Yeah.
Just as no one player is the main character, neither is this my story. It is our story. It is a tale
100%.
that we tell together. And as long as you're abiding the rules at my table, you get to have a say in how that story goes. Now, are there times when the story is written and this is what we're doing, and like, you know what I mean? Like, you guys, yeah, it does happen.
Yeah.
I describe it as being cinematic, there will be moments where, congratulations, you guys have reached the cutscene. Go ahead and set your controllers down, and I'm going to talk for a little bit now. That does happen in my campaigns because, well, that's how I think you can deliver on some of those big moments where you can sometimes otherwise struggle if the players are interjecting things into it, and now what you wrote doesn't make sense anymore.
Right, and that's exactly what it is. Exactly. And obviously, what we're talking about could be 10,000 different elements, aspects, plot points.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll give you one.
Yeah, please.
And I think there is also, I'm gonna put this out there. I'm gonna do all my fellow DMs a favor right now. So this isn't for you. This isn't for the DMs out there. This is for the players.
Heck yeah.
I need you all to listen to me very carefully right now. Let your DM monologue.
Oh my God. Say it again.
I have to spend this entire campaign making you all look cool, making you all be heroes, getting to let you do the cool things. Let me get my one cool moment as the villain to monologue and move the story along.
Bro.
That's where I get to feel good about myself and feel like I'm cool.
Yes, man.
As cool as it is to be the one where, the DM or the villain starts talking and you just pull your gun out and shoot them, right? Like, it's cool. But
okay,
you have to let your DM move the story along.
This is gospel, all right? This is gospel. Everyone there, Robert, go ahead and clip this again. Whatever needs to be done to get this to the people. I also, Robert, you hit the nail on the head. Like, yes, I use time stop. I use time stop and I use silence in game.
Yeah.
To facilitate these ends. And like, I need to fucking clip this, but the end of the second act in our campaign and sort of sending us into the third was the party killing this level 20 divination wizard.
Yes.
And I love this guy, dude. Like, this guy had all the reasons in the world, and he was fucking them up. He disintegrated the bard. Like, he had power word kill counterspelled. Like, it was touch and go. But it began with him casting time stop, and man, like, monologuing while he cast a delayed fireball and kind of like moving about the space and shit. And it was so funny because a dear friend of mine, Brian, who is the Curse of Strahd campaign DM, a wonderful DM. He's also a director on a lot of my stuff in LA. He's phenomenal.
Oh, very cool.
But he, in character, got really pissed because I was talking a bunch of shit. And he's, in character, starts to respond. And it was so gratifying to be like, dude, you're time stopped.
You can't respond.
Like, you are frozen. You are hearing, you are seeing.
Yes. And I want you as a player to be thinking, what is your character going through right now? How are they reacting? But
like,
you
are glued, frozen.
Yeah.
As this man walks through the space, unbidden.
So there have been some really good moments, and I do set the expectation with my party at the beginning of campaigns to say there will be moments when I'm going to be talking and doing a scene, and
it's a cutscene.
Please do not interrupt me. If there is a chance for you to interrupt, and always when the scene is over, you can say, I want to try and do this or have been trying to do this, and we'll see if we can make that work. But I remember, I'll never forget, the best one I think I ever got to do was with Scala, who had become a divinity at that point. She had become the goddess of Serene. She was called Dia Scala now. And in this campaign, when she became a deity, they had managed to defeat her as a dread demon, but they were pretty beat up, and now she's God, and they're gonna lose. And one of the other goddesses who happened to be there, my goddess of stories and the arts, she basically spoke up and said, I have decreed that their story is not over yet. And she flung them 10 years into the future and said, go and complete your story, tell your tale. And they went to the future, and the third act of the game takes place 10 years after what becomes a failure, because that is the moment where Dia Scala, now with the heroes gone, takes over the world. And the last act takes place in this world that she owns, in this world she controls. Everyone prays to her now because she, realizing from the party, hey, fear and hatred didn't work. So what if I just give everyone everything they ever wanted and I can just make them lazy, and they'll just do what I want because I give them whatever they want now. So now she doesn't need to end the world. She has made it her own, and she owns it.
But that's like way scarier.
It is, and what we find out is that because she killed the gods of life and death and absorbed them as well, she controls who can live and who can die. So her followers, those who are faithful to her and believe in her, never age, they never get old, they never pass, and those who don't do. So there is only a set amount of time to defeat her before everyone's just gone. She'll have outlived it. In this third act,
I'm loving this.
The party, eventually she does talk to them, and she tells them, maybe I've been mistaken. Maybe there is a element of you that believes that you're right. You're not, but you believe it.
Sure.
And you have been a thorn in my side. So how about this? I'll give you each a continent. One continent of this world, and you can do whatever you like with it. Or the alternative is that we fight, and people will die, and they will be people you care about.
Damn.
And they, of course, being the heroes, said, oh, we're not taking your deal from the villain, and rightfully so, they shouldn't have. But a few sessions later, one of their beloved NPC allies got killed in a fight, and they were working on a resurrection spell to bring her back, which takes a little while to cast.
Yeah.
And as they're all in this circle and all giving their offerings and making their dramatic, heartfelt speeches, Scala appears and starts walking around them, talking and saying, did you not listen to anything that I said? People will die, and they will be people you will miss. And then she counterspelled their resurrection spell, took the girl's soul, and left.
Let's go.
And it was one of the most, what a dick move things I have ever done to my players, is counterspell and resurrection.
Listen, counterspelling healing, that's power.
that is power you can't get.
Like that's yeah, I love that. Like, I mean, you'll see many of my like boss fights have notes to self in red, and many of them are counterspell healing. Counterspell healing, John, do it.
They got me back when they counterspelled her meteor swarm a fight later. I was like, well, yep, I guess I earned that.
But yeah, anytime an 8th or 9th level spell gets countered, it's like it feels impossible. But that's kind of like the Dragon Ball Z-esque level of epic combat. You know what I mean? Like, it needs to be that way.
You have to have listen, Gohan has to fight Cell with the huge Kamehameha wave at the end. Like, that's what we need.
Dude, I'm just seeing this. Silvery barbs their death saves.
That's a dick move.
That is very aggressive.
That is outstanding.
Especially given, we both love it. Especially given, like, how contentious Silvery barbs makes people.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love that. Oh gosh. Okay. So this is super helpful, and I'm loving. It really seems like a lot of. I mean, I just more mean in general strokes. Like, I am really resonating with a lot of what you're saying, because I try to prioritize a lot of those same things. Seems like you really execute them incredibly well, Callie. I'm curious if we could maybe talk a little bit about. We talked about pre-campaign and. I'm sure you have, session zeros, of course, like touching base and getting to know, and lines and veils, and not that that's unimportant. I'm more just like, I feel like we as an audience understand that.
Yes.
I'm curious if you could maybe tell us a little bit about what your prep looks like, and if it changes, if it at all, but maybe what it looks like, in the first 5 sessions, and then what it might look like before session 40.
Right, because it does change.
Yeah.
So obviously earlier on, there's more prep. There just is. I don't know the characters as well. I may not know the players as well. I don't know who I can count on to eat up 20 minutes of time versus who I can count on to eat up 4 minutes of time.
Amen.
And that is a very different thing.
Yeah.
But if later on, I know, okay, if I give this player something juicy to gnaw on for a little bit, they'll eat up 20, 30 minutes between dealing with that and talking with the rest of the party about it and going through that. So I really love early on. Yeah, my for session 1, I'll have like 7 or 8 pages of like notes about the world and major NPCs and what the characters are going to go through and some important places and NPCs that they might meet along the way. And then the first few sessions will have a lot of notes, especially descriptions of new places, because I'm very bad at doing like the intro read of a new city or the intro read of a new building or something like that, or a person. I'm not so good at making those up on the spot. But so I'll write those out in advance, and then but all the conversation and all the dialogue. I've been podcasting since I was 16. Ad lib I can do on dialogue. But see, so I don't really remember that. And then combat is the other major thing that I prep almost in its entirety. Except for nowadays, I'm starting to get confident enough to like I need a map and I want that, and I want to make sure the tokens are prepared and all that. But I'll just like look at an enemy and go, I can guess what you probably can do. And, I know how much damage I need to be doing to my players in this encounter.
No, that's the absolute truth. Is you start to realize like, okay, yeah, I know.
CR is the most useless system ever made, besides the tax code. So why follow it? Like my final encounter in Curse of Strahd was a CR20, 2 CR16s, and a group of CR5s, and they were only like level 13, and they had really no problem. They tore through it. Well, like CR doesn't mean anything.
I completely agree. I love how everyone is like, yeah, what the fuck is up with CR?
Well, and
I agree. I mean, it's brutal.
It's not Wizards' fault either, because you really can't create a system. Ironically, we go everything's full circle. That's why 4Es was very good, because the math was so tight in 4E that you could look and see what what it should be. But in 5E, where they give so much more leniency and so much more freedom, and like again, if you have a paladin in your group versus if you don't, that paladin could smite on a crit and none of the numbers that you wrote matter anymore.
Or that paladin could just exist and every save goes up by 4
or 5. And now none of your stats matter anymore because the math doesn't work anymore.
I like these, what we're discussing here are the subtleties of DMing, but really of knowing your party dynamics, right? In such a way to, now at the same time, it's worth noting that like I really dislike it whenever, certainly as a player, but whenever I feel like a DM is kind of not necessarily homebrewing against my player, because that sometimes can be great, but is like changing raw mechanics to accommodate party dynamics. Yes. And like there's a give and take, because like fundamentally you know what you got to do, but
in my opinion,
sometimes the paladin
it's all
should
about
help.
If you can justify it.
There you go.
Because there are does it like, okay, hey, here's my rogue character. Okay, well I'm gonna give every enemy true sight. Okay, I can't play my rogue anymore. Totally. That isn't any fun.
Totally.
But take I hate to keep going back to Curse of Strahd, but I just finished it, so it's on my mind. But by the time the party got around to fighting Strahd, he had already fought them once, and his partner, who he was doing that fight with, also knew the party in and out and knew how they worked. So yeah, he had things prepared to deal with them specifically because he's already lost to them once. He already knows how they fight.
Exactly.
And he's a 20 int. So like he's a smart guy. Like you can justify it sometimes and it makes sense, but the goal has to be to let it be something your players overcome. Agreed. Not something that is meant to just keep your players down.
That is so well phrased, because like you think about like a dominate person, or like sometimes stuff like heat metal on the fucking paladin. Right. You know what I mean? Like very straightforward, simple things that like are not. Yeah, there's one thing where you're like, I'm nerfing my player versus I'm challenging their strengths, right?
Right.
Like those are neighbors that are not on the same property.
Right, but they also don't live too far apart from each other.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like it is a balancing act. Like and it is something that I'll be blunt with you, DMs. You're gonna botch it sometimes. Sometimes you're gonna get it wrong, and you're gonna deliver something that doesn't feel as great to the players. And I do stars, wishes, and wards in my game for that exact reason. I always invite my players afterwards. Hey, let me know what you liked and what you didn't like, because if I do a mechanic that you thought just sucked and wasn't any fun, if you don't tell me you didn't like it, I might assume you did like it and use it again.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's yeah, completely agree. Like, can you maybe talk in chat? I'm with you on all of these. These are great examples. I'm so glad so many of y'all have been able to play with Callie. Yeah, you guys are lucky. Is it, Callie, is it something where you will, is it kind of a standing assumption after a session that people can just reach out, or will you present them with like a Google form? You know what I mean?
No, I mean, I tell people my door is always open. Please reach out to me on Discord. Try and talk to me about chairs. Obviously, I run a ton of games right now, so I don't reply always as quickly as I would like to. But you're always welcome to talk to me after a game about what you liked and what you didn't like, because that helps me to grow as a DM. And like any, I hate to, I'm going to make myself sound like a piece of shit saying this, but like any business, we only grow through feedback from customers.
No,
and
that's real. Yeah,
bluntly, I need feedback to be able to make myself better and make my games more fun.
1,000,000%.
I've had moments that did not go over the way I hoped they would, and I need to know why they didn't go over. What was it about this moment that didn't land the way that I expected it to? And so it's not to say that it was, and part of that comes with being able to take a little bit of criticism, because there are, and myself included, sometimes I will get up in my feels about someone trying to give me some criticism that I'm like, well, no, but I wanted it to be this way. This is what it was supposed to be like. And the answer is, but it wasn't. That isn't how it came across.
Right. So, that's so real. I mean, I'm sure you come across this in podcasting, right? Mm-hmm. All the time in voiceover work or taped auditions. In fact, sometimes I'll stream them, and this happened on an audition stream not too long ago where I was in the booth and I was like, oh, like take 1, take 2, okay, take 3. Oh yeah, that's the one. To myself for later.
Right.
And then I go back and I listen back, and it was absolutely not the one.
No.
You know what I mean?
And someone else might tell you, what were you thinking?
Well, for sure.
No, the first one's the one.
And that's where, other artists, that's where I love being able to go to my wife and be like, hey, can you just look at these 2 takes? Like,
please tell
I'm
me.
blind.
And
you know what I mean?
That's my favorite thing about working with Robbie as much as I do, is that
he's rad.
That as well. But I play in some of his games. He's played in my games, and we give each other brutally honest feedback sometimes about what things we liked and what things we didn't like. I saw Robert was asking, what are stars, wishes, and wards for those who don't know? Stars are what you liked about the session this week. Maybe you enjoyed an NPC that you want to see more of them. Maybe you had a talk with an NPC that you thought was just really good, and you would love to be able to expand on that more at some point. These are the things you want me to do more of. Wishes are, this is such a missed opportunity. Like, we did this, but it could have been so much bigger. Yeah. And then wards are, hey, in the future, that didn't do anything for me. And here's why. So that's stars, wishes, and wards. And that's a great DM feedback tool. If your DM does not like getting that feedback, that's a red flag for me at a table. Because if you can't have an open and honest dialogue about what you're experiencing every week, that's a scary place to be, especially if it's a paid game. Like, that's one thing I've noticed about going over to running my paid games is every game I think, would I have been happy paying $25 for that session?
It's a whole nother level. We talked about this pre-stream, right? I mean, like, it's a whole nother level in a beautiful way, but I think that's honestly the difference between even like acting for your buddies or an improv set, or going up, being brought in and hired to do something. Like, it changes the way you think about success in a challenging way, but oftentimes in a healthy, in a way that makes your finished product better.
Right.
So I love hearing that. And just to like really circle in on it, because I think I know I'd like to know, it seems like the chat would too. I sometimes will reach out, typically every 3-4 months, with a Google survey.
Oh, okay.
That's sort of like, hey, thoughts on this, or like some yes, no, or hey, and some of it's just pragmatic, like, do Tuesdays still work? Blah, blah, blah.
Are we still good? Yeah.
Exactly. But are you, like, is this something where you will, like, is it just expected post-session that some of your players will reach back and be like, hey, like, award for me was this and a star was this? Like, it'll just kind of happen? Okay.
It's both, but not every player is comfortable doing that. Not every player feels like they can come up to you after session and say and talk about what they liked and didn't like. For some players, D&D is just their thing they do for a few hours a week.
Right.
Let them get out of their heads and be someone else and be a cool hero for a little while. And they don't want to be thinking about it other times. So for them, especially once per act, I like to reach out to everyone in the group and just say, hey, how do you feel about your character and their story? How do you like where it's going? Is there something else I should be thinking about or trying to explore with you with this character? And that's majorly helpful, I think, because not every player, like if Robbie's in the chat, he'll attest. I talk to him about my characters almost every day, if not every day. Like, I do not shut up about the characters that I play in his game because my obsession is characters and growth and storytelling. It is what keeps me going on a week-to-week basis. But not every player's like that. And some of them they are there for their 3 hours and they are happy to be there. They're excited. They're a great part of the table, but that's what it is for them. And that's totally okay too. There's no wrong way to enjoy tabletop if you're not being a dick.
Yeah, for sure. And that's also where it comes into dynamics because, like, if you have a table that just loves combat and, like, has to have it, you know what I mean? Then you would incorporate that. Thank you so much, baby. But that's not always a way. It's just everyone is not doesn't come back for the same reason, you know?
Right. Well, and it's also finding the table that's right for you. Because, like, if you're someone who loves crunchy combat and dungeon crawling, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you right now, you probably aren't going to have any fun at my table. Like, that's not me. Like, that's not what I run, and that's not what I excel at, and that's not what's interesting to me. Mm-hmm. But there are tables out there that are perfect for you, and the realistic truth of it is that no D&D is better than bad D&D.
Yeah.
That is a hard thing about our
so
hobby.
Hard. So hard.
Is that it is better to not play than to have it be a bad experience, and that, like so many things in performance and entertainment, is such a brutal reality to accept.
I mean, listen, I'm getting there commercially where I'm like, fuck this. Like, I mean, like, it's a job and I'm grateful for it, but it's so devoid of artistry or performance that it just feels really, like, banal and kind of icky. But
why am I doing it?
Totally. Exactly. But that thing of, am I having fun? Like, that applies to the DM too. Like,
yes.
You know, like, we oftentimes have fun inherently just by watching the reaction of the oh fuck from our party or whatever it would be.
or whatever emotion it is that we just want to elicit emotion.
Totally.
Whatever that emotion may be.
Just trying to get that pulse going in any direction. And so that is satisfying in and of itself. But I also am trying to do a better job of building in, like, there's a handful of NPCs that my party hates. And so you know that they are coming back around.
Oh yeah, we're gonna see them again.
The shambling man, hello, I'm back. You know what I mean? Like, just the idea of, like, like, those groans at the table sometimes are exactly what it needs because I am feeding off of it. You know what I mean?
I have an NPC named Alexi who appears in some of my games, and Alexi sucks. He's the worst at everything. He is the guy you don't want to have around. Like, he is the guy who'd be like, hey, you guys dare me to eat this dirt? And everyone says no, and he goes, oh, you guys are crazy. I can't believe you're making me do this.
It's like, Alexi, we don't want you to do that.
Alexi, stop. Yeah,
don't
Alexi
do it.
Sucks. No one wants to be around him, and he appears in my games from time to time, and he is just...
You know,
everyone simultaneously groans, but is super happy he's there. I have another one named Melisandre, who is
Melisandre.
She is a blind girl who worships a blind goat, and that is true in every game she appears in. She's always blind, and she has a blind goat that she worships.
There's a through line, a goat line.
Yep, and she exists in all stories to move the tale forward in some way. So there. In my Descent into Avernus game, the group just recently got to go to a place between realms. They went to the Inn Between Worlds, which is an inn that is run by Melisandre and by the goat. And she says that when she was young, she learned how to plane shift, and she learned how to see other worlds. And what she noticed is, as she went from world to world, is that there was always a girl and there was always a goat. And they always moved the story of the world forward. and that was probably the most meta I've ever let myself get in a game.
But
like,
that's
I love that.
I don't know why I love that too, man. Like that's sometimes as a tension breaker. Like I love being in character and being like, yeah, it was larger than I thought it would be. You know, like he came in and we kept raining arrows on him, and it's like his AC was like 25. You know, like I love like sort of in game sometimes referencing the mechanics to give information. You know,
the one we always use is how you feeling? On a scale of 1 to 64, I'm at about a 12 right now. Yeah. I could use some healing. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, Callie, this is so great, and it's so funny because like I found Robert really randomly, like just across threads, I think, and enjoyed his content. Really enjoyed chopping it up with him. Have loved like getting to see some of your community come through, but I'm just blown away by. Because I like scrubbed through some of your streams and stuff, and like I was like, okay, wow.
Oh God, like...
I'm
sorry.
No, not at all. I was like, this is awesome.
Thirsty as fuck.
No, not. I mean, yes, I need more.
Yes,
but it's like, but you've got a really specific and carefully crafted playing style that like is your own, and like that to me is the beauty of tabletop. Is like I do view it as an art form truly, and I think that we all every DM, every player. Has their own priorities and level of execution, and I mean we can talk about that forever. But I'm curious if at all, but to what degree your background in game design influences that, because that's so cool. And you talk about act structure and like the payoff of certain scenes. That feels to me inherent to game design, but I don't know if it is.
Yes and no. So my backgrounds come from a couple different places. I'm a big movie buff. I love cinema and I love film.
Me too,
That's actually that was one of my big passions was cinema and acting. And the other thing is I was a big nerd in my teens, and AOL Instant Messenger was a thing, and I did a lot of role play on places like AOL and Skype and Trillion and Go Gaia or Gaia Online, whatever it ended up being called. I did a ton of role play on those things. I'm glad you think it was awesome now, because I'll tell you, it did not have the impact on my social life I would have liked back then. So I'm glad you think it's cool now.
I do.
It definitely wasn't then.
Yeah. That's what the early internet was for. You're like, what is this? You know?
But in that time, it really helped starting to introduce me to the ideas of characters that can grow and change, and starting to put a stable of characters into my head. Some of whom I still draw on to this day. That I'll still bring out one of my old characters from my teenage years, although they've matured a bit since then. What I thought was cool when I was 16 is not necessarily what I think is cool now. But I think NPCs are one of my favorite aspects of D&D, because not only do you get the stories of the NPCs that are, your background NPCs, who, the shambling old man or Melisandre, who makes an appearance every now and then, but you also, I know it can be a dirty word, but I love the NPCs that stay with the party and travel with the group. And I think if there's a piece of advice I'm going to give you for anyone who runs a DMPC, this is the one thing you need to remember. It is okay for your DMPC to have special moments for them too, but what you need to do is ensure that the way your DMPC grows and changes is influenced by the players. The players have to be the ones who help your NPC get from A to B to C in their story. They have to see how them interacting has influenced this NPC. That's how you get them to buy in and like your DMPC and not just think they're there to steal the spotlight. And also, don't let them steal the spotlight. They are there to support the party ultimately.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think being real, like my DMPCs are like rarely past level like 4. You know what I mean? They're also typically like in need of help a lot of times. But I do think there can be those moments where, like them, just like you would with any NPC period, like sometimes the focus of the story of the moment moves through a cast of characters that isn't controlled by the party. That's okay.
I'll tell you a story about a DMPC because I almost cut them out of the game, and their name is Carmilla, and they are the adoptive child of one of my Curse of Strahd characters that is still around in the time of my time DMing the game. And so they are they are, by their very nature, they should be a main character in the making, right? They are the daughter of a former knight who is now, like, her holy quest now is to try and save this world that has done so much wrong to her. And
we're talking about Barovia specifically.
We're in Barovia, yes. So Carmilla is she starts off as kind of an antagonist, but not really to the party. She hangs out with them, but she is very dangerous, very scary because she's a vampire.
Oh, shit.
And
okay.
She is. And the party is aware of that when they meet her. But as the game goes on, she is freed from her master's control and now is allying with the party in a way that kind of makes her... Well, they have to decide what she's going to be to them. And in becoming free of their control, she can no longer be a paladin anymore. The radiant light would burn her and hurt her. So in talking with the players, she learned stories about compassion and sincerity and duty and courage and justice and all the tenets of Bushido. And in that, she becomes a samurai. And she is influenced by the party, and she is now a samurai. And that is where she discovers her ability to love and to care again and to want to find the heroic parts inside that maybe have been covered up in a sea of blood for 800 years.
That is so fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
Because Barovia, like, that character, like, I can see, like, the journey that a character must go through in Barovia is awful.
It's terrible.
You know what I mean?
There is... you should warn your players always ahead of time. There are not a lot of happy moments in the Tale of Barovia. But if you're doing it right, the story, the DMing of it should be about finding those little bits of happiness.
Yeah, of hope.
It shouldn't just be constant misery. It's finding the little places where you can steal away a piece of happiness and some enjoyment. Like, that is what makes Curse of Strahd such a fun setting.
I think that's well put, for sure. Like, it's just like any, like, salty sweet kind of balance. There needs to be some presence of each. Otherwise, it's just overwhelming, you know?
Why am I doing this? This is miserable.
I love this. Like, let me ask, and it could be across the board, but have there been any, like, situation, or have there, because we talk about a paladin in Barovia is what makes me think of it. Have there been any classes or subclasses that have been particularly challenging for you to DM?
Yeah, Path of the Totem Barbarian. It springs to mind right away.
You're like, I got one for you. I got one.
You know what? I got
how
a few,
about this?
That you know what? I'm going to open the bag.
You have, like, a tattoo. You're like, how about this?
Yeah. Where's my... Yeah, there we go. There's my... no. The Path of the Totem Barbarian is so unbelievably tanky. The problem with it is I don't want to have my enemies all just ignore the tank because now they don't feel like they're doing anything. So you have to find that line between being an idiot and you'll never win a fight or do anything because you're just throwing all your strength at the tank who's reducing your damage by half or a quarter.
I know.
And
everybody knows dominate.
And then Oath of the Ancients Paladin is another one that springs to mind real quick.
It's literally what I was thinking. It's exactly what I was thinking.
Springs to mind as being problematic. That's why it's getting nerfed into the dirt in 1D&D.
6, yeah. No, thank you. There we go, Nerdist. Exactly. I love how everyone's just like, work of the ancients. And then Baby's like, that's what I do.
Oath of the Ancients. Listen, I actually made my own Paladin subclass that I play on Monday nights in Robbie's campaign because I wanted to play a more traditional tank. But I didn't want it to be necessarily about, like, reducing the damage that's coming in. I wanted more ways of taking the hits from my team and being a tank in that way, because there's no way to mark really an enemy or to, like, pull hate on an enemy like you'd have in a video game or even in 4E.
Oh, like aggro. Yes.
Like totally. Aggro, yeah.
Wait a minute. Wait, quick time out. Did 4E have aggro?
Yes. There were ways, I mean, in ways of, like, you are disadvantaged if you're attacking anything else.
That is brilliant. Like, that's very realistic. And
Tank was one of the, they called it, they had different names for all of them. Warden, I think it might have been called. More compelled duel, yeah. But 5e has it to a very, very limited extent. There is the
Yeah,
mark
there's some.
spell, and I
and
think
then,
Oath of
like
Vengeance
Enmity,
might have one.
Exactly, the Vow of Enmity has it. But
Vow of
then
Enmity.
there's Battle Master stuff that can like
Yep.
give
taunt.
disadvantage and fear. I mean, they do exist, but this seems like it was inherent to
Yeah.
damage taken regardless of class.
Yeah, so there, my Oath of Protection Paladin has a Channel Divinity where they can intercept a hit from someone within 30 feet and take damage and take half the damage. And then they have Bastion of the Meek as their 6th level ability where they can mark a target. That target gets advantage while it's attacking you and disadvantage while attacking anyone else.
Ooh, now that is a hectic exchange.
I have something of a sick fascination with my characters just getting the shit
Taking
beaten out
damage,
of them.
bless you.
I love it. Listen, I love my girl Rosalind. I love her so much. She is my plucky upstart hero in the making. All good things in this world, and she gets the ever loving hell beaten out of her, and I love her for it.
Oh my gosh, that's so like yeah, it's so I don't know why it's so like female characters that want, because it's different than like a subdom dynamic. I mean like literally like chase that like want to be in the thick of it.
Yeah, they want to get
Like,
all up in people's business.
That's a very compelling archetype. You know what I mean?
So Roz is interesting. She was the first trans character that I ever played on stream. Robbie and I created a term called Naivist, which is an Elvish term it doesn't have a direct translation into Common, but it would refer to someone who knows a great truth about themselves.
That's
we basically created our own version of hormone replacement therapy that we take in this she takes in this world. But she wants to be a knight. That is her goal. Even despite knowing that she's trans and knowing that she's a woman, she is very masculine. She does have a lot of very high masculine features about her, because she wants to be a knight and she wants to fight and she wants to get all up in people's business. She grew up throwing fists with her half-orc aunt. So, like, she knows what it feels like to get punched in the nose and get her nose broken. Good. Yeah.
She actually loves it?
She's my girl. She loves it. At some point, to a concerning degree, she doesn't mind getting the shit beaten out of her.
Oath of the BDSM Paladin. That's hilarious.
There we go. Well, I mean, speaking of we were going to talk about Drow at some point. Speaking of BDSM.
Trust me, that's still on the docket. Don't worry about it. I don't want to reveal the avenue, but that will be discussed.
I love it.
Okay, what do you hate about being a DM, Callie? Like, what do you hate?
That's an interesting question.
I love.
I love so many things about it, but I really enjoy sometimes just getting to focus on my own character and not having to worry about a bajillion NPCs and the story at large and how and letting someone else tell me their story a little bit, and rather than I'm an entertainer first and foremost. I love telling my stories. I live for the reaction on people's faces when I bring them to tears or when I drop an incredible reveal. I live for that. But there are days where I just want to think about Rosalind, or I just want to think about Amaryllis, who I get to play on Friday nights, or Nissa, who I get to play on Saturdays sometimes. Like, sometimes it's nice just to get to think about my own characters and tell a story on a much smaller scale than the whole world.
Copy that. I think it's rare that I'm interviewing DMs that never get to play. Like the forever DM archetype.
I couldn't do it.
I couldn't either. You know what I mean?
I couldn't. There are weeks where Robbie says we can't play, and it like kills my enthusiasm to run my own games, because I need those times to like mentally decompress and just focus on my character.
That's exactly what it is, because you want that taste of the immersion, right? The almost out of body, fourth eye,
escape this real world hellscape I live in.
Totally,
for a while.
Dude. Exactly. I'm like looking at it like the LA streets. I'm like, exactly.
This is fine.
but
it's on fire.
But it is possible as a DM to have that same experience. We do it all the time. It's just the caloric burn. The cerebral focus and burn is just a different ask than whenever
I run 2 games on Sundays, and by the time Sunday is over, I go on the couch and I'm a zombie for a little
That's
bit
so
because like, yeah, it's mentally exhausting. And like on Mondays, right, I run a game and I play in a game, but that's fine. I can like playing in a game doesn't take the mental energy that running one does.
Exactly. And this is, I mean, I'm in no way promoting this. I'm like very open about this. I enjoy smoking cannabis. Like it's like it's a nice dabble for me. But getting stoned before DMing is really dicey for me.
Oh,
like,
I can imagine.
You know what I mean? Only because of it's like every session. Sometimes it's from the recap and it's all good. But every session has a moment where it clicks into place and begins rolling. And until that click, I'm not fully comfortable.
Right.
And like I just don't want any variables of me being like all like anxious or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, but I say that to say whenever I'm playing, oh my God.
Whatever.
Like dose me in ketamine. Like whatever. You know, like I'm so chill and ready to go. Like there's no issues.
The difference between me as a DM and me as a player is wild. Like when I'm a DM, there can be no food intake before an hour before the game. I just have my bottle of water and that is it. I don't like to snack. I don't like to eat. When I'm a player, I am constantly like eating olives or just snacking on something as I'm just enjoying myself. Like it's relaxing. And DMing for me is more like work. It's work that I love to do and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'm happy to do it and I'm happy to make my living that way. But playing is playing. It's just relaxing.
It's play for sure. Gosh, I love that. And Kelly, is there like in terms of, you know, because like for example, like Heart Slot, like you know, there's new sort of, you know, people that want to DM or they've done it a couple times, and especially when they have a background as a player, sometimes I think that can be tough in the moment because you're like, oh shit, like
it's intimidating.
This doesn't feel the same. Exactly. It can seem like so much more. And as a player, you can be checked in and like tracking and enjoying it and silent for 10 minutes or whatever.
But you know, but there is that learning process of listening to what your players are doing while also mentally prepping what's going to happen next, and it's a balancing act.
And that to me is very much a skill in improv. Is that acting listening, is the ability to be present, to be part of the scene, and also be running some computations like in the background.
In your head.
You know,
I listen, I got an NPC that's going to drop an awesome line in a monologue in a minute, and I got to be preparing for that while also still hearing what you're telling me. Oh yeah.
So
I know that life.
Like my prep is like with combat, I want the map down for sure. Like ideally I'd like the stat blocks. Hopefully I've rolled for like the initiative, save myself some time. But I really do like to prep those scene descriptions like you talked about. And even little like zingers, little like oneers and whatnot. But I put this forward because I found this my last session and it surprised me because I hadn't really felt this aware of it before. But sometimes I think as well, I'll just speak for myself. Me as a DM, I can sometimes get a little too caught up in like the chambered bullets that I have. You know, because it's there's always going to be a reason there. And I think like I would encourage dungeon masters to focus more on like the spirit of the intention of the character, what they want, like why they're in the scene to begin with, than the actual structure of the language or the quip or whatever it would be.
I don't ever tell anyone that they can't like write out a monologue. That's fine. But don't bother trying to write out a conversation. That's an exercise in futility.
No, for sure. I mean, like if you want, like oftentimes I will have one lead thing.
The lead in
like,
line.
You know, boom. Like I cannot believe that this happened or whatever. Like the night sky that day looked like this and it was extremely confusing, but I couldn't look away. Whatever.
So I'll give an example. And if you're in my Call of Another Deep game, I apologize for the little spoiler you're going to get.
Buckle up. Little
spoiler. But this is how we're starting the session. So at the end of last session, when we were playing, my party met with, they had been hired by a person who runs a, let's say, shady ring in Rexentrum to take them over and meet with the leader of the Zadash Myriad, Ophelia Mardoon, who is a much more powerful, big-time crime lord. And she is dangerous, and that is well known. But they did. They took this person and they introduced them, and Ophelia promptly took a gun out and shot her between the eyes and killed her.
No.
And that was where we left off last session.
And this was a PC?
This is an NPC that they were traveling with. And another NPC they're traveling with, Rain, who is the woman who got shot, is her daughter, was there to witness it. And so this is how we're picking up next session, but it'll kind of give you an idea. As Ophelia's eyes shift to look at the younger woman, sizing her up, she says, "You're going to have the opportunity to make a lot of stupid decisions in your life, girl. Do not make one now. The bravery with which you fight will be matched only by the speed with which you die.
Let's fucking go.
Go. Bury your worthless mother and live to fight another day. And when you're ready, if you still feel some way about it, I promise I am not difficult to find." And that's all I'm writing for it, because what's the point of writing anything else? I don't know how anyone's going to react to that.
But that's it. Because what you do in this type of prep, and I love this, and obviously anyone that tunes in for my prep is like, Carpe, you do way more than that. I'm like, I know, it's too much. But like,
I know, but you have to call me
But I enjoy it, bitch. But like,
yeah.
But no, Kelly, like what you just did, like that is super compelling prose, right? That's also structured in a way that is affectual. Like this isn't something of like, well, agree to disagree. It's like, no, this is a slightly insulting in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
but it's all saying we're not fighting here, because if we fight, you're going to die.
Totally, which is a plot point.
Mm-hmm.
But it does. It's like, I think prepping little oneers like that can help a DM up the language, and up the immersion by really crafting into this character's voice. Like that was exactly what I'm talking about. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think understanding too the difference between a well-spoken, powerful woman like Ophelia, who is both powerful and knows it. She knows she has nothing to fear. She doesn't have a guard with her right now. She doesn't need one.
Dude.
Like,
yes.
You can tell a lot more with the little things like that. Like, my party knew when they got there, don't screw around with this person, based on the fact that she didn't bring a guard with her, because she doesn't need one. Even if they manage to kill her, which they can't, their lives are over.
They can't. I love that. Yes. Like, if you ever have a BBEG that just walks through the party.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just sort of like walks through them, maybe like touches one, you know? Like that is the type, that is like raw, like presented power.
Yes.
Doesn't give a shit. Like it's just there. It's boom.
You are inconsequential to me, and nothing you do can change that. Now, of course, because it's their story, something they can do is going to change that and is going to affect that. But they don't believe that that's the case, not to start with. And not every BBEG starts that way, to be clear. Some of them start far less confident. Some of them become the monster along the way. But there is a special place in my heart for the villains who just have so much power, and they know what they are and who they are, and they know you can't stop them.
That is...
It is the hubris that allows heroes to happen. Which is actually why in my Whispers game, Scala this time tried to kill the party really early on, because she was defeated 800 years ago. She knows what happens when you let some heroes get uppity. That's how she lost last time. So she tried to kill them off the bat, and it was only their goddesses defending them that saved their lives.
Damn.
But,
I see. That's the beauty of like circling things back through. Is like even just having a BBG or an NPC, whomever, that witnesses your party, like effectually in combat or doing some epic shit or whatever, you better believe they know that, you know, the fighter has Sentinel, and therefore, like, they will not be getting in range, or they're aware that the cleric has whatever they have. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like that.
Oh, you guys like to use Autoluke's Resilient Spear? I'll keep note of that. I need to have a Disintegrate available.
Yeah, exactly. Like those type of aspects of strategy within a world where magic is known and understood. Like that's just realism.
Listen, this person didn't get to be the BBEG by being a moron.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
they didn't stumble into it.
They didn't get where they're at by being an idiot. Otherwise, they would not be where they're at. No, they have some ability to handle adversity and to plan and to overcome, and they're willing to weigh the scales in their favor as far as that scale will go.
Yes. Callie, that's well put. Well, let me ask you, I know that, I mean, we got kind of a late start. That's on me.
No worries.
So we'll definitely wrap this up within, 10, 15 or whatever. And if you need to step out earlier than that, that is okay.
Don't worry about it. I'm fine.
But I'm curious, we'll end with a little something called the rapid fire.
Oh, snap.
So prepare yourself. It's going to be aggressive. It's not. It's going to be fun. But I want to
got
know,
this.
like, where are you with killing players? Like, has your campaign killed players? What does that look like?
I am for it when the story calls for it and the player is on board with it. I do not like to kill my players just for the heck of it or just for the shock value of it. I had a player in Curse of Strahd who told me from the word go that they wanted their player to die so they could actually play their real character that they were going to introduce through this death.
Jesus.
And so at the end of Act 1, when my true villain emerged and revealed themselves, they did so by murdering the player as the other players all stared in shock and horror.
In that situation, Callie, was it, like, can you describe that a little bit for us? Like, did y'all enter initiative combat?
So this player was isolated, helping an NPC that was an ally of the group, and that NPC ally was actually the BBEG.
Oh, fuck.
And they were also lovers too, which made it all the sweeter when she betrayed them. And not
hopefully
only,
after the fact. Before
the fact.
Shit.
They were lovers.
Way
because
worse.
They've been friends. They've been close. They revealed that they were not only a vampire but evil, and bit her and turned her into a vampire and turned her against the group.
Oh no!
It was brutal.
Yeah, that's super hard.
Yes. So, yes, I am in favor of player death when it is sensible and is something that we talked about, but we're not in the 90s anymore. We don't come to the table with 3 characters prepped. We now have backstories that we've written. We have art that we've commissioned. We have lots of time and effort and energy put into our character.
Specific dice that were purchased for this
we
character?
Buy dice for our character. This is Rosalind's dice because it's got a moon symbol for the 20. That is where we're at. Like, we live in that era. So no, I don't like to kill a character to a bunch of goblins on the street. That's cool.
Well, no, that's real. I mean, like, in my mind, there's typically 3 big versions of character death. There's like the early campaign, low level.
Yes.
Oh shit, these kobolds
things happen.
critted.
Death.
You know what I mean? And that for me, let it fucking rip, baby boy. Like, you know what I mean?
Whatever it is.
If this kobold came out and is just dropping 19s, it's this dude's day.
What are you gonna do?
You know what I mean? Like, that is the chance of war. But the other 2 are either really structured, like challenging, let's say, deadly encounters or deadly situations where it could go left or right. Hopefully, I have curated a situation that feels like the pressure and the stakes are ratcheting up. So before initiative is even rolled, there's that kind of pitter-patter of death being proximate.
Yes.
But I would love to get your opinion, and honestly, any DM out there, because one thing that I really struggle with, and it's actually kind of come back up a little bit, is I don't know how to frame this efficiently. Essentially, like, certainly death, but even meaningful consequence outside of combat.
Yeah.
Like let me give you an example. Heroic sacrifice is great, but like the party is one of the characters' backstories. He worked for a syndicate in Waterdeep. They're called the Blind Jackals.
Okay.
And they are very much sleeper cell. I mean, maybe like old school, like Italian mafia vibe. I mean, like very entrenched in a lot of big industry.
They have a reach everywhere.
Exactly, right. And a lot of
everywhere that matters.
Through trade. But like it is also flexed through money and then, exhibited through martial prowess as well. A lot of monks are blind jackals. And our monk was a blind jackal, left it, basically had an open, basically was like given an assignment, walked away from it, and is now fallen afoul of this group. It's the only like contract that wasn't closed.
Yep.
And
do that.
the party knew this. Like, they knew one of the lieutenants of the Jackals was working with the BBEG. That's kind of how they were sharing resources. And as they left this battle, they were basically being hounded by these Jackals. And it was more or less like a skills challenge to get out of this scenario.
Try and escape, yeah.
And they failed. And it led to a situation where they were either about to enter combat again, very low on resource, very, post enormous battle, or they were about to get like surrounded completely and, more or less like captured by the Blind Jackals. Yeah. So the fighter, who is played by a dear friend of mine, it's hard to describe. It's also been like a year, but basically wasn't at that session. We'd ended on this cliffhanger and had more or less been like, hey, I want to, whatever I can do to help the party get away, I want to do. Get in here, Vampire Girly. But what ended up happening was they got captured pretty immediately. They had an opportunity to fight their way free. They didn't succeed. One of the monks stunned them. Now they're captured.
Yep.
The character was not in that session, though. So I'm feeling kind of cringe because they did give me their player's direction. I think I probably rolled their con save or whatever, didn't succeed. Now they're captured.
Yeah.
And in my mind, it's like, am I going to go and kill this character? Oh, thank you so much, Robert. Appreciate that. Am I going to go and kill this character off screen? Am I going to have this guy come back in and be like, so, you weren't here last session on this campaign we've been running for 3 years, and here's what happened. No, I'm not going to fucking do that.
Of course not.
But what I did do was I built out, I love D20 tables.
Oh, yeah.
And on my mind, on a 1, he has his hands cut off.
Ooh.
Like, boom, 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 boom. So you're alive. You figure it out. Like, you figure out a shield and a sword. Battle Master. You figure it out.
Yeah. What's it going to be?
On a 2, it was going to be stripped of their possessions, like beaten to a point of like 4th or 5th level exhaustion, and temporarily blinded. And so on. And they rolled a 2. And in that moment, in my fucking stomach, I was like, they should die. But in my like heart and in my like cerebrum, I was like, no, man, like I don't, like that's not how I DM. I don't want to have these out of combat, ex machina, boom. Yep. And so I moved away from it. And it has always been a moment, like either way,
looking
it would have
back
worked.
Where it's like, yeah.
But because now the final track of this arc is them finally coming to face with the head of the Blind Jackals. And I'm just curious if, like, I know I'm not even really asking a coherent question, but like, how does that hit you? How would you interpret this? And then lastly, whenever they do come back to face this BBEG, his name's Trent, is there a recompense that affects them now? Is there a third level? Like, is there another degree? Are his hands dangling from this BBEG's neck? You know what I mean? Like, there are, like, I want the through line to be even higher, and there's a part of me that's like, wants him to be like, make a death save, like, as combat starts. You know what I mean? Like, I want you to be conscious and up, but know that you're losing death saves. That's the power of the blood goddess Bala that this BBEG serves.
So I think there's a lot going on there as a moment. And my instant advice to all DMs who find yourselves in this kind of situation is talk to your player and find out what's interesting to them. Maybe that player wants to do a moment. Hey, you failed the save. Maybe they want to do the heroic moment where they are brought to their knees and spit blood in the bad guy's face and he cuts their head off. And now your character is Coulson. Your character just got Coulsoned and has united the rest of the party against this person. But the player's aware that it's coming and they had the agency to decide that's how I want my character story to end. Or maybe they say, no, my character would probably bite their tongue and bide their time and know I'm going to get another chance. I'm going to get another chance. And when I do, I'm going to, wrench your head off by your neck. And as for what your person says, for sure, when they show up to see him again, he smiles and says, here to give me your feet as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think
But-
I like the idea of almost, I've wanted to use the hands to almost like build a cipher of the fighter.
Oh, I had one of the villains that they faced in Whispers and Silence. She was literally had become like the demoness of torture, and she liked to cut people's
demoness of
limbs off
torture.
and built a throne out of people's severed limbs that she'd taken from people.
Damn. So it's like
Yeah,
it's
she
like,
was not
it's,
nice.
it's like a kinetic throne. You know what I mean? It's like moving almost.
Yep.
Jesus.
Pretty much, it was brutal.
Jesus, that's so good. Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. You know, because that's the reason I mean, I wanted to ask just because I am very taken with your prep and the specificity with which you create these stories. I think it's very thoughtful and very specific and rad.
Thank you.
And you know, I didn't even ask the question because I thought it was so apparent. Like sometimes I'll ask, what's your favorite pillar, you know, of D&D? Like role play, exploration, combat, discovery. Sure. And clearly it's role play for you, which is rad. And I love role play. I think that role play is what makes the rest of what works at the table work, even down to combat. But it's also important to me to like have those moments, even in role play, that can feel dangerous, that can feel fraught with cause and effect, right? If the intimidation fails, if the persuasion roll isn't met, etc. And so it feels like you've really captured that as well.
I think it is dramatically important for your players to feel like they can fail and that there will be consequences to failure. I think what people get too wrapped up in as a DM sometimes is always having to deliver on that. You only need one or two moments in your campaign of something going horrifically wrong to have your players always remember how bad it can go.
Agreed.
And that's part of, I talk a lot with DMs about building up goodwill with the table. You build up goodwill with the table, and that's how you get away with counterspelling a resurrection spell.
Completely.
When the players believe that that the terrible things that you do to them are to help tell a better story, and not just because you're in a bad mood that day. I call it collaborative storytelling because it is. We're telling a story together, and sometimes that does mean that I have to do some less than ideal things to you all. Sometimes the hero's journey involves going through hell, so you do have to suffer sometimes.
Totally.
But ultimately, I think sometimes DMs get too caught up in they rolled a 6 on that persuasion check. Maybe they should go to the dungeons. And you're like,
yeah.
Or maybe the king just thinks they're kind of a dick.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
yeah, maybe he doesn't refill their
have
wine.
To be that. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be the end of all things when they botch something up. And it's just always important to remember what's fun, what's going to be interesting for the party. It's like when people, the one that drives me absolutely nuts is people will do like, make a history check about the thing. Like, okay, you're a cleric of Laki, one of my goddesses. Okay, you want to know this thing about Laki? Make a religion check. They rolled a 5. Okay, well, I'm not gonna say you don't know anything about Laki. You're a cleric of them. You know plenty. So I'm gonna tell you. I will always tell you what you would know. But if you roll a 20 against a DC 15, I'll let you ask any one question you want about Laki to reflect your research that you've done on it.
Yes, that's a smart way to do it. It's almost like some roles there is no bottom on
fail
it.
State.
Exactly, right. There's just
the
like
fail
a
state is
top
you
end.
get the general information. Maybe you just get more information if you roll well, and it can be specific information that you want.
Agreed.
So.
That marrying of when, like failing forward, like Robert talked. Also, like when a fail isn't disastrous. Versus sometimes they are. Sometimes it's an acrobatics check for all the fucking marbles. Like that can happen. Yeah, I love that difference. So, Callie, I think we got to do it. But before we move into rapid fire, because I just there's so much homebrew, and I love that the role play is such a centerpiece of your games and the way you kind of think about this, just presenting TTRPG. Are there any moments, a reveal, a monster, a twist, whatever, that like you just as a dungeon master are particularly proud of?
Yeah. There was one in my 50th of 51 sessions in Whispers and Silence. I told my party, so at the beginning of the game, they were all chosen by different gods and goddesses of my world. I had one that was chosen by the goddess of fate, one chosen by the goddess of the stars, one chosen by the goddess of rebirth, one chosen by the twin gods of nature, flora and fauna. Cool. And then one that was chosen by the matriarch. And the matriarch is the protector of the orphaned and the abandoned. They are the patron deity of orphans, effectively, who looks out for them.
They must be busy in D&D. There must be a lot.
They are very busy.
Forgotten realms.
But they are half goddess and half demon, because not only are they the protector of orphans, they are also the punisher of abusive parents, those who abuse their children. They are a demon to them. Cool. So I told the party at the beginning of the game that once in the campaign, I was going to let them use their link to their divinity in a different way than normally they could. Something powerful, a once per campaign ability. And it was like, a very cool mechanic.
Resource management, it's like once per campaign.
Once per campaign. And so for some of them, they were just very like straightforward things that they knew when they found a time to use them. But some of them, there were plot moments where, ooh, this would be a really good spot to use this ability. Like we could do something really good with it. In the 50th episode, I had one that hadn't been used yet, and it was my player who was playing the matriarch. And the once per campaign ability was that just as Evelyn, the matriarch, would do anything to grant the wishes of her children, so too will she grant your wish now. And they were now 10 years in the future, facing down, getting ready to go fight Diascala, and knowing even if they succeeded, this world has been decimated. So many people that they've known and loved have died. Of the probably 40 or 50 NPCs I had in that game, 20 or 30 of them were dead and gone and on a memorial wall when they got to the future because they had perished. And they had met a chronology wizard along the way, and they believed that this chronology wizard was going to help them get into the divine realm to fight Diascala and try and save the world. Well, as it turns out, what they were actually meant to do was try to send them back to their time to try and fix all of this before the world was ruined effectively, and they didn't have the strength to do it. This chronology wizard, despite being a very powerful wizard, was not strong enough to create a time portal back 10 years. And so I asked the player, I told you once in this campaign I would give you the ability to use this power and grant a wish. What would you give to save this world? And she said anything, and that infused this wizard with the strength to send them back to their original time and face Diascala at the beginning. And that was the ending of that session.
I'm loving because like I in my Tuesday homebrew, like time is almost like the villain. This divination wizard is desperate to go back to this war that concluded about 60 years ago, and I'm interested because he served Thalos and has now kind of been cast from the material plane and exists only in the astral in this sort of weakened state. But I'm interested what it might look like, because I felt like they will probably in the campaign being pulled back into the astral where they've been to face what's left of Undertow. But I wonder if that setting feels like the past, because that's such a poignant, like, you know, this wizard like could probably still taste things from 10 years ago, and like he's so obsessed with getting back to that access point that right, you know,
that moment where I can make it all right.
Exactly.
If you guys would all just fuck off and let me do my thing.
And like it's probably tinged with regret, embarrassment, shame, like right, like so like that to me is a very cool device. I mean, people talk about like time travel a lot. But
people talk about time travel being lazy, but you can do it well.
You can do it well, and you can also do it like really just like as almost like a very small slice. It doesn't have to be this huge butterfly effect.
No, it really actually doesn't. You can do it as a very minor part of the story. You can do it as a major part of the story and have it be interesting. It's just about what's interesting to your players and what's interesting to you, ultimately.
Agreed. Completely agree.
the final fight with Diascala, she tore them back through multiple time periods trying to defeat them. Those were like her different phases.
That is badass. I love that.
She literally couldn't beat that. Like, they beat her in, like, when they went back, and so she went back to try and kill each of them before they became heroes, and in doing so actually started them on the path to becoming heroes. Was the big reveal.
Yeah.
That in fighting her, they actually each set up their own backstories. So.
That is hard to pull off. Callie, how dare...
Not
you know
easy.
what? That's a perfect place to cap as you drop a vignette in line that would justify another 25 minutes of dialogue. That is so epic. You're like,
well, you can watch every episode on my YouTube. So
that's fucking right. Is it at Escalia?
Escalia YT.
YT, love it. Okay, cool. Let me just shout that out real quick. Also, to make sure that I ported over my shout out.
If you do go back and watch, I will give you the warning. The first like 8 or 9 episodes were before I was using music, so they're a tough watch.
Oh my God!
I eventually started using music, and it's better now.
That's so real. That's like go back and look at my early days streaming Elden Ring from my couch. You? Oh wait, sorry.
I hear myself
I'm
playing Phasmophobia. Are you here?
That's exactly what it is.
Am I here?
Yeah. I'm like, I did not warn Callie that I was doing this, and she cannot see the video, but I'm glad that you could hear yourself.
Yep.
So drop over there, give her a follow, and it's a Escalia YT on YouTube. That is amazing. I think I speak for all of us whenever I say I would like to check that out.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I do appreciate it. We're, like I say, Whispers in Silence is finished up. We're currently playing through Mother's Jail every Wednesday, which is the follow-up to Whispers in Silence. And we're just near the end of the first act right now in that game. Robbie Landis, who's in the chat, is our DM on Sunday nights. We've been playing Second Chances for... Robbie, is tonight our 100th episode of the Second Chances?
No.
I think it is. I think tonight is episode 100, Monday nights. Oh my gosh, yes.
Robbie, that's badass. That is bad.
So
getting to 100 is epic as fuck. Wait a minute though. Yep. Hold up. We gotta circle in on Celtic here. There's also the game she killed my character inside of 5 minutes of session 1. Let's talk about it.
That's also so Whispers in Silence. So her goddess was the patron of the goddess of her birth. So her character died at the beginning of her tale was her character dying and being brought back by the Red Lady, goddess of her birth.
Got it. Okay, so it was narrative, but that's still that's jarring. I'm sure the rest of the table is like, the fuck?
Yeah, what happened?
Like my beer is still cold. Like, how did this happen?
And they were like the first scene we did in that campaign was them dying.
You're like, I spend most of my prep on scene 1, which is death.
I hope you all enjoyed this moment because that's the campaign. We're done.
Oh my gosh. Died in character creation is an enormous lulz. That is hilarious. Okay, let's do it. Guys.
Rapid fire.
Buckle up. Here's the deal.
Got the D100
Callie,
ready.
I didn't prep anybody on this, okay? I never do. But it is essentially a series of like mostly like binary questions, like do you prefer red or blue, like up or down? But they're all like D&D adjacent, right?
Okay, love it.
And there is absolutely no right or wrong answer. Just go with like your first thought, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Let it rip. And those following along at home, feel free to drop it into the chat, especially if it's your first time viewing. I'd love to know what people like, what they prefer, what their vibe is. But with no further ado, Callie, are you ready for the rapid fire?
Oh, man.
Okay. Then we shall commence. In character creation, you prefer standard array, point buy, 46 drop lowest, or 3d6?
I'm a big fan of just using the standard array and awarding some bonuses for clever character backstories.
Ooh, bonuses for character backstory. I love that. I've never heard that. Okay, standard array is very fun. I love that. All right, table snacks, sweet or savory?
I am big on sweet, savory snacks. I love olives. Those are my go-to.
Someone did mention that in the chat. Olives are great. I love olives. My wife
Trans girls that love olives. It's a fact.
Yeah, there you go. I love that. I'm jotting that down. Yo, if you want to please a trans girl, get him some olives.
Olives or pickles.
That is hilarious. Okay, cowboys or pirates?
Cowboys.
Vampires or werewolves?
Vampires.
Respect.
Mainly because you get some sexy vampire characters. Check out my campaigns anytime.
That is so good. You're like mainly for the sex appeal.
I mean, also I do have large buff werewolf girls too, but you know.
For sure. Well, I mean, like it kind of depends what you're into. I feel like a vampire is more, dare we say, like traditionally sexy. There's that sort of brooding darkness.
No, listen, vampires are by their nature and they're writing very sexual creatures, so there's always that dangerous allure.
And also, like, anytime you're eating by way of like the neck, you know what I mean?
I mean, it's inherently intimate. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I ask you that. Giants or dragons?
Ooh, dragons.
Dragons, I love it. Okay. Red dragon or blue dragon?
I'm a big fan of the traditional red dragon.
Red dragon, I love it.
Love
now,
it.
Are red dragons inherently evil in your campaigns? Yes or no?
No dragons are inherently evil in my campaign settings.
It's a danger, Hickey. Dulvich, that's hilarious. Okay, respect. If you could only play one for the rest of time, spellcaster or melee?
What do you consider paladin?
Oh, god damn it. You're right. That's the problem.
The spellcaster melee.
You're
Sorry,
like,
it's either paladin or warlock, and either way, it's a spellcaster melee.
Dude, that is I love that you're like 1 A and B is warlock as well. That's epic.
Listen, again, trans girl, we play tiefling warlocks. That's like our go-to. We live for tiefling warlocks.
You're like, here's the deal. Okay. D100 or D12?
D100.
D100. There we go. Okay. Very well. Fireball or lightning bolt?
Lightning bolt.
Mending or spare the dying?
Mending.
Mending. Every fucking DM chooses mending.
Spare the dying.
I love it.
Spare the dying gets replaced by healing word too easy.
Got you. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I have to ask. Tabaxi or tiefling? I know the answer.
Oh, but that's so hard though.
I know.
You ask a trans girl between cat girls and devil girls. That's like our 1A and 1B. Tiefling. I gotta go tiefling.
Tiefling, respect, but it was close.
Never mind that my thermos has a sexy cat girl on it.
Yeah, I love that. You're like, here's the deal. All right.
I mean,
that's you hedging your bets.
Literally.
Is preference elf or dwarf?
Elf.
Gnome or halfling?
Gnome.
This is gnome or halfling is like the hardest one for me.
Gnome or halfling is tough, but I love playing like the tinkery halflings. I think they're really cool.
Yes. No, for sure. And gnomes are so they're like truly teensy. Okay, this is the only trick question, and I have to warn you that we stand turtles on this show. Turtle or turtle?
I mean, for sure, turtle.
You're damn right. They can pull into their shells. Resting AC of 17.
They're amazing. They're amazing, and Robbie actually plays a great one. I love that they talk very slowly, and you're like always like. Come on.
A chortle. He's playing the turtle from like the Disney Robin Hood.
Basically, yeah.
Okay, are you starting your campaign at a tavern or a brothel?
My campaigns start, begin, end, have their middle section in brothels all the time.
You're like, that's like where you go to save it's a save point, a checkpoint in the campaign.
I don't know that I've ever run a game that didn't go through a brothel at some point.
Respect. I was already in, but I'm now fully in. Hunter's Mark or Hex?
Hex.
Cleric? Well, we already know that one. Well, fuck, we know all of these. Okay, Druid or Ranger? Ranger, wow. Okay, Fuzka somewhere is doing a backflip.
Gloomstalker,
respect. Like the moody Ranger that's also
the broody Ranger,
kind of
heck yeah.
Little granola.
And the Dragon Ranger, the Draconic Ranger.
Oh,
Dragon Keeper.
I've never played a Ranger, so I need to be more like intimate with what's going on. I know that.
Was there a brothel in Mother's Jail? Y'all all had 2 threesomes last session. You guys are a walking brothel.
Where do you think it happened?
Yeah, the Drake Warden. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, Drake Warden. Thank you. Astral plane or fire plane?
Astral plane.
Which is sexier, a kobold or a goblin?
Kobold.
Interesting. Okay, a cleric, a bard, and a sorcerer all walk into a dungeon. Which one walks out?
Whichever one didn't run into the succubus.
You're like, okay, which one would that be? A cleric, a bard, or a sorcerer?
Oh, clerics are so fun to corrupt. Yeah, it's gotta be the cleric. They're not walking out.
It walks out with like black eyes. What do you think is a scarier thing to encounter in a dungeon? A small boy that's lost and somehow immaculately clean, or
nope.
An old woman wearing rags that won't stop laughing?
Ooh, those are both. No, if I'm in a dungeon and there's a small child down there, absolutely not. Get that away from me. I am not about it. I love having like cute like child characters in my campaign that the party's gonna fall in love with and want to take care of. Not down in the dungeon. That is not where I want to see child.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, can you? This is not a yes or no, but can you just give me a 2 to 4 line explanation? Why are Drow the sexiest elves?
Because Ed Greenwood is a kinky motherfucker, so of course he made all of his Drow sexy BDSM mommies.
It really is very hard to look at the art and not be like, yeah, green light.
Ed, I get it, man. I like leather play too, but wow, they let you get away with that.
Exactly. It's like, wow, are you swaddling that child in leather? Like, wow, the Drow really, like, this is part of the culture. Oh my God. Okay. Yes or no? A nat 20 or a nat 1 outside of a attack roll is an auto success or failure.
It is not an auto success or failure.
That's how I rock too. Like, it can influence it, but get out of here with the auto shit.
I will take it into consideration that you rolled a 1 or a 20, but you do not have a 1 in 20 chance to succeed on anything.
Totally. That's okay. Thank you. There's few things in the rapid fire that has a correct answer, but that is one of them. Okay, last question. Yes or no? Should cats have dark vision?
Cats should absolutely have dark vision. I just introduced my party to the queen of cats. Cat She is hanging out with them.
Cat She?
Cat She. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. And that concludes this episode of the Rapid Fire.
Nailed it.
Callie, you crushed that. That was epic. You've done it. Bugles up.
I made it.
That was a treat. It was a treat and a wild ride.
For me too. Yeah, well, I always aim to have it be a wild ride.
Yeah, well, you succeeded.
If nothing else, it will be memorable.
I love this. Like, Robbie, I owe you another thank you, dude. This is amazing. And this is honestly like what got me into streaming, and what I love about tabletop is, you know, if you have a room full of 50 improvisers, it will not feel anywhere near as collaborative, compelling, supportive, and separate but equal as it will whenever you have a room of 50 dungeon masters. Because, like,
oh, true.
Obviously, like, there's toxic assholes everywhere, and like people can be problematic, and like whatever, stuff can happen. But there's so much more space given to, like, oh, how would you do this? How would you do that?
You will never see a group of people that want each other to succeed more than a group of dungeon masters.
That's a great way to put it.
That is true both in the kink community and in tabletop.
You're like, listen, dude, I've got this tabaxi I can't get off my fucking mind. It's driving me crazy.
Are we talking about in real life? Or...
Yeah, exactly. Both. The line has blurred. I can't see across it anymore. No, but that's it, Callie. Like, I've loved picking your brain. I've loved hearing where you're coming from on this stuff. If you don't already, I think this applies to me, please click over and give Ascalia a follow. I'm going to go ahead and just drop them. Or where is that? I'm just going to pin the tweet. I mean, pin the... No, it's too far. Oh, there it is. Found it. Yeah, do yourself a favor. I'm pinning it at the top. And get over there and give them a follow, because you don't want to miss when this is happening live. As opposed...
We will be live for the end of Act 1 on Wednesday this week in Mother's Jail. Please, you can always follow me on Threads, Ascalia on Insta. You can check me out there. I wish it was Ascalia on Threads, but that's not how naming on that site works. And please also check out Cloaks and Capes.
Yes.
If you want to support what I do and what the amazing team that we have over there does, you can check us out on our Patreon, where we have over 500 magic items that we've created. Dude, many of them have art now. We have hundreds of magic items. We're working on releasing our first ancestry, our first race that we're going to be dropping, called the Oneroxy, which are my take on the Kalashtar. I took the Kalashtar and kind of took them a step further. So please look forward to seeing the Oneroxy come out. And if you tune in on Wednesdays, you might get to see one of my players who is an Oneroxy and just found out.
Oh, that's badass.
Yes. So
wait, I
please check that out.
Is it Cloaks and then AND?
Sorry.
Capes?
So I'm just gonna drop that right there. Patreon.com/Cloaks and Capes.
Oh, my bad. Okay, my bad. I missed it.
Yeah, Cloaks and Capes. And that is us. That is what we're working on right now. We're gonna have the Oneroxy dropping very soon, and we're also working on our own podcast.
That's so dope. That's so dope. I love. Well, let me just go ahead and toss a pitch. And I said this to Robert. Honestly, if you are a DM or a streamer out there, 99% accurate. This applies to you, but this 100% applies to you, Callie. If you need someone to sort of come in and play like a villain, or maybe someone to come in and be like a very confused sort of drow that can be killed very quickly.
Yes.
Whatever you need. Like I live for the one-off.
Oh yeah.
The quest giver, the kobold with 2 hit points that gets railroaded and killed, the villain themselves, like whatever the fuck. Like I would love to add that as a resource.
Absolutely, and that goes both ways. If you ever need a sexy, dangerous dungeoness, you just let me know.
Yes. Noted, and I will. That is epic. Carpe the fodder. I love it. Well, guys, we're about to get out of here, but I mean, before we do, Callie, you've given us everything that's coming up. We have Cloaks and Capes, Patreon and Twitch. We have Ascalia on Twitch, Ascalia YT on YouTube. Like anything else we can do to support you or be a part of kind of what you have going on?
I'm sure someone in my Discord would be willing to put that link in there. I do have a Discord. We are a gay, thirsty ass community of a lot of TTRPG players, a lot of Final Fantasy 14 geeks. We're a very supportive, very fun group of people, so feel free to join the community and come hang out with us. Would love to have you along. I do advertise all my Start Playing games, so if you're looking to ever get into one of my games, that's a great way to keep up with what I'm doing there. And you can check me out on Start Playing Games. I was informed I do have one space in my Tuesday Eberron game still available, and I believe I have one space available in my Monday Call the Nether.
Let me just go ahead and, because I said I was going to drop that in, and then I kind of lost the... Let me just drop that in.
Thank you, baby B. Appreciate that.
Of course. Where are we? Also, I love your breakdown on Start Playing. It's so funny to me.
Please read my Start Playing Games thing, because I do tell you what kind of players are going to enjoy my games.
You're like, here's the fucking deal, people. Like,
yeah, I would rather full well before you get in whether you're going to enjoy my game or not.
Yeah.
And watch on Wednesdays if you want to get a good idea. I will say Wednesdays is probably my thirstiest game. They're not all like that, but
wait, Callie,
it's a good example.
Is it Start Playing? Is it Ascalia or is it?
It is /GM/Ascalia.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I got it. Boom. Okay, great.
Okay, yeah.
No, I also have just started getting into Start Playing. I love it as a resource, and
it's amazing.
It's a great opportunity. I haven't dove into all of Callie's specs, so maybe she only does reoccurring campaigns, but it is a great way to bring in a bunch of people that have been talking about wanting to play D&D forever, and it really ups the stakes and the immersion and the buy-in whenever you are investing a little bit in it.
Yeah.
But like many things in life, you get what you fucking pay for.
I know there's a lot of back and forth on paid games and stuff like that, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I'm going to tell you right now, no one is bought in like the players at my table on my paid games. Like, they are invested. They are there for it. They're there for the story, to make sure everyone has a good time and to have fun together. It has really opened my eyes, and really, I've been blown away by how much people have enjoyed it.
I completely agree. Like, it has been some of the most satisfying sessions ever. I've been running this reoccurring game for a group of kids, of 11 and 12-year-olds.
I love that.
And it is so satisfying and epic, and I'm just like, couldn't be more into it.
I love it.
So guys, support Callie when you can. She's rad. Callie, it has been an absolute treat to get to hang out with you. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for allowing me to be a casual, stressed 15 minutes late. I was so stressed this morning trying to figure out the fucking virtual camera, which I still didn't figure out.
If it's the worst problem you have today, it'll be a great day.
Amen. I like to end all of my D&D sessions by rating someone else that is streaming Dungeons & Dragons. That happened to me the first time I ever streamed Dungeons & Dragons almost 2 years ago. Yeah. And it just made my day. I met Mim. I met Altruistic Latte. It's actually how I think I ended up meeting Fuzka, and then subsequently Evie, and all these other people that become. Yeah, so I just if you can, guys, please stick around. I will say that I don't know who I'm raiding, so hopefully they are chill and decent peeps. But right now we're about to raid the Friendly Bonfire. They have no viewers.
I would hope they're chill.
Yeah, at least they're friendly.
If like a friendly bonfire. That they better be chill.
We get in there, they're like burning books. We're like, oh
yeah,
shit.
you're like, oh, that's not the. Ooh, nope. Mm-mm.
No, they're friendly to whom? Oh my gosh.
Catcher in the Rye. What the?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, dude, is that German? What's going on?
Oh no.
No. But this is a great way, and also it's part of that thing that we were talking about in the community where it's just like, there's some good people here. So
There's a lot of good people in this community.
exactly. So it's nice to sort of like be there and love on them. Guys, we had so many people that came through, so many first-time chatters, Baturd, Robert, Crimson. I mean, all of Callie's crew. Like, thank you for coming in. So many of you guys dropped follows. We are 2 followers away from another tank top giveaway.
Oh snap!
So if that's you, hey, now's the time. If it's not you, let's go. We are 1 away.
1 away.
Get in here, baby. All good. I'm gonna vamp for like 15 seconds because I know we got one. And these tank tops, if you go to coffeecops.org/tank top, you will see them. Handmade by me personally.
There it is.
Go.
There we are.
Get in, baby boy. That was a shameless request, but I guarantee you will not request
nailed it.
Yeah, exactly. Next stream, we are giving away a tank top. Celtic, baby, vampire. Thank y'all for loving me and supporting me. I know it's probably by proxy of Callie, but thank you, Callie, for lending me your support.
Always.
This is a treat. Go follow Callie. We're about to raid these guys, so if you can, stay in and say hi to the friendly bonfire. I know they will appreciate it and probably uplift their spirits. But before we properly dip out of here, Callie, any last words?
Be good to one another. Players talk to your DMs. DMs talk to your players. When we all talk about the story and are not so caught up in everything has to be a secret and a big reveal, you have a much better game, I promise.
God, that is so beautiful. That's true. Communication is everything.
Communication is key.
And like she touched on, be kind to each other and be kind to yourselves, baby boys. I love y'all. Okay, we're out of here. Callie, tell them what up.
Deuces.
Peace. Say hi to the friendly bonfire guys. Bye. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Smooches and bye.